our State House studio in Montgomery. I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. The legislative session starts back tomorrow when the House and Senate convene for the 18th legislative day. The House is scheduled to convene at 1 o'clock p.m. with the Senate coming in at 2. It is expected to be a 2 legislative day week with chamber days on Tuesday and Thursday with a committee-only day on Wednesday in between. That means after this week, the legislature will be almost 1/3 of the way finished with the 2024 regular session. But there's plenty of work to do still. Let's take a look at some of the issues that remain outstanding. Of course, there are the budgets. While work has been done behind the scenes on the General Fund and the Education Trust Fund, the actual bills still need to be introduced and go through the committee process. Expect that to start as soon as this week, with the General Fund starting in the Senate and the Education Trust Fund starting in the House. Workforce development is an issue that many lawmakers are eager to get to after that package of workforce bills was introduced before they left town. There's also the issue of gambling. We are waiting to see what action the House might take on the pretty significant changes the Senate made to its comprehensive gambling package. This week, we are expected to see a series of military-related bills, items meant to make Alabama more hospitable for military families. Tort reform, or bills limiting the scope of plaintiff trials and monetary awards, is also expected to be discussed. And expect legislation seeking to limit the proliferation of unions, as 2 Alabama automakers are the targets of major unionization of efforts of late. On the House floor tomorrow, we expect to see debate on House Bill 227 from Representative Matt Simpson. It seeks to overhaul the Alabama Ethics Code to reorganize how prosecutors would be carrying out the law that governs public officials. Simpson plans to offer a substitute bill on the floor after consultations with the Attorney General and the state's District Attorneys Association. He's gotten pushback from the bill on both.
The laws are so confusing and convoluted right now that nobody knows what they can do and can't do. And in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So if the Ethics Commission knows what they can do and they're the only people that know, they're upset if we allow other people to kind of have some involvement through this process. You've got some people, I'm not sure where the Attorney General is going to be. I think he wants the bill to go a little bit further than it does, and I know the Ethics Commission thinks it goes too far. But the way I feel about it is if the Ethics Commission thinks that we went too far and the AG thinks we didn't go far enough, we're probably in a really good sweet spot for the people of Alabama.
Simpson has also gotten pushback from Ethics Commission Director Tom Albritton, who has publicly opposed the bill. I'll speak with Albritton in depth about his take here in the studio later in the show. Today began Navy Week here in the capital city. Sailors, midshipmen, captains, and even an admiral are in Montgomery this week, visiting schools, speaking at local civic clubs, meeting with local and state leaders, and generally just reintroducing this Air Force town to the United States Navy. The festivities kicked off with Mayor Stephen Reed at City Hall.
The state of Alabama is home to over 5,000 active duty sailors, more than 558 Navy reservists, and more than 7,822 retirees. And we thank all of them for their service. The impact of our Navy men and women goes beyond just their service. They are role models for our young people. They embody values such as discipline, loyalty, and selflessness, which are essential for a strong and thriving organization and community. They inspire our young ones to dream big and to strive for excellence in all aspects of their lives.
So the purpose of Navy Week is to bring your Navy closer to you, closer to the citizens of Alabama, citizens of Montgomery, and help you see the value that you receive every day from a globally deployed force that ensures America's security, its economic prosperity, and its way of life. Your Navy is deployed around the world, in all the world seas, 24/7. 90% of global commerce happens on the oceans, and 95% of all internet traffic flows through undersea cables. Your Navy keeps those sea lanes of communication open and secure. And this freedom of the seas makes Alabama prosperous.
The Navy also put on a special demonstration at Park Crossing High School, showcasing what it's like to be a Navy SEAL in virtual reality. The Nimitz virtual reality experience allowed students the opportunity to be a part of a Navy SEAL mission, even piloting the boat and going through a debriefing.
What you're seeing behind us is the Nimitz trailer, and this is part of something we're doing today as part of Montgomery Navy Week. And Montgomery Navy Week is, well, it's kind of like Fleet Week except without the ships. I mean, we're going to areas that don't really have a Navy presence, areas that are pretty much landlocked. So you don't see the ships, you don't see the sailors around the area. But we're bringing the sailors to you, and we're bringing the sailors to 15 different cities a year throughout the country to kind of show what the Navy does and who the Navy is. Well, along the same lines of not having a presence, a Navy presence really in this community, it's important to kind of show what the Navy does in these different occupations and the possibilities of a career in the Navy. There's so many different things you could do in the Navy, from meteorology to, saw the ceremonial guard this afternoon, but there's also underwater divers, you have Naval History and Heritage Command. There's just a number of different opportunities within the Navy and doing some great things and having the opportunity not along with the career to also see and go places that you never dreamed of going.
I'll actually be joined here in studio by Rear Admiral Mike Brown, who happens to be a Montgomery native, later in the show. We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is Tom Albritton, Executive Director of the Alabama Ethics Commission. Tom, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I know it's been a while since we've had you on Capital Journal. I think it's the first time since I've been hosting the show, maybe back when Don was. So I was hoping that you could kind of reintroduce yourself to our audience who may not remember. Kind of talk about what the Ethics Commission does, but what also your role as director is.
Sure. Well, my name is Tom Albritton. I've been the director of the Ethics Commission since 2015, so I'm beginning my 10th year in that role. The Ethics Commission regulates public officials and public employees in the state of Alabama at the state, county, and local level. As director, I manage a staff of 15 people. That includes attorneys, it includes investigators, it also includes support staff.
Okay, I see. And so where does the commission's jurisdiction end and yours begin? Is it, I'm thinking almost like a legislative executive sort of role.
Sure. Well, all official decisions are made by our commissioners, who are appointed by the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker of the House to serve staggered terms. So they make all the official decisions. We, of course, provide materials to them to aid them in their decision making, but ultimately all official decisions are made by them.
I see. Well, and so the reason it's such a big deal is, I remember the ethics reform way back in 2010. There was pretty widespread agreement that the ethics code was flawed and needed revision. Those revisions passed. You can argue about whatever they did, what they didn't, but the Ethics Commission came into real focus because it finally gave some teeth, or was aimed at least to give some teeth. Would you say that that's a fair assessment of what that 2010 legislation did?
Sure, it certainly did. The commission was formed in the early 1970s, and if you look at the development of the commission over that 50-plus year period, the legislature has consistently given the Ethics Commission more and more authority. You may remember that a big deal was giving the Ethics Commission subpoena power, and that was given. Steady funding was given to the commission too, and that's because the legislature throughout the years, regardless of who has been in there, has valued an Ethics Commission that is both independent and also has the ability to do its job in a meaningful way. So 2010 certainly did that. The other important thing about 2010 is in most respects, the legislation in 2010 incorporated what is probably the best available national model for how to approach ethics. And in 2010, Alabama did that. So 2010 was a good step forward for ethics at the time. It was hailed that by the legislators who passed it, by the governor, by the executive director at the time. In my opinion, is certainly consistent with that.
Well, now we've got a new bill looking at further revisions to the Ethics Commission. I've sort of described it as a reorganization a little bit between the prosecutorial powers, what the Ethics Commission does versus what the Attorney General and local prosecutors do. But you've come out publicly and said that you're opposed to this. You testified, I guess, before one of the committees in the legislature.
That's right.
And you weren't. Walk me through your opposition.
Sure, it's not a reorganization, it's a complete rewrite. And I think that it's important to remember that the legislature in 2018 formed a revision commission for the purpose of analyzing the existing Ethics Act and making recommendations about what should be done with the Ethics Act in terms of clarification. The Ethics Revision Commission at that time, which included me and the current Attorney General, as well as 22 stakeholders, all of whom work in the Act, lobbyists, the businesses that employ lobbyists, state employees, elected public officials at all levels of government, associations, all unanimously agreed that there should not be a rewrite of the existing Ethics Act. The Revision Commission did identify 4 sections that they thought needed some tweaking and made recommendations to the legislature about what portions should be revised. What this proposed bill does is rewrites the entire act. Our opposition is many, however, it's centered on 3 main changes. First of all, the proposed bill takes 2 important sections out of the Ethics Act, use of office of personal gain and intent to corruptly influence, and moves those into the criminal code. The reason that's a big deal is you really can't analyze any of the issues in the Ethics Act without analyzing those 2 sections in conjunction with it. It also really doesn't create anything new, because currently prosecutors, including the Attorney General and your DAs in the state, already have the ability to directly prosecute these cases, whether they come through us or not. Now, we work collaboratively with most other offices and have well for the entire time that I've been there. So what this does, though, is it pulls the key analysis that has to be made in any ethics decision, use of office and corruption, and transfers it out. The second thing it does is it changes the standard for that analysis. Currently, in order to prove that somebody has corruptly influenced a public servant's official actions, you have to have evidence that shows that that was the intent behind the parties. The new bill, however, requires that there be an express agreement between parties that the gift that I'm giving you is being given for the purpose of corruptly influencing your official actions, which will make it nearly impossible to prove. You know, this is just not my opinion. This is also the opinion of the Attorney General, who has stated publicly that this version of the Act, this proposed rewrite, significantly weakens fundamental principles of the Ethics Act. So even though that office and we disagree from time to time and have publicly over certain issues, we both agree that at least this version does compromise those key sections in substantial ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that there are conversations going on between the sponsor, Representative Matt Simpson, and the Attorney General about maybe some of those things. But we've also heard from the Attorney General that he doesn't think it goes far enough in terms of having more authority on the prosecutorial side rather than your office and the commission. I mean, that's what Matt Simpson was talking about on the show the other day, saying, I've got, Albritton on one side saying it goes too far, and Marshall saying it doesn't go far enough. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I think the argument that he's making is that if it's some kind of compromise position that nobody's happy with, that's probably a good thing. If we were talking about the settlement of a lawsuit, if we were talking about a plea even in a criminal case, that he may be right about that. But when you're talking about public policy, if the major people who are involved in this act have a problem with it, then I think that means that it's bad policy. So I don't think the fact that we disagree over why this is a bad bill is nearly as important as the fact that we at least so far have agreed that this is a bad bill. And so if we are agreeing on that point, but for different reasons, then how much else in the bill, is objectionable. However, it does go to this point. I don't know how much more control they want when they already have the authority to come in and prosecute any case, whether it comes from us or not. So what they're really doing is advocating for our removal from the process at all. It's no secret. We have issued advisory opinions that they disagree with. We have investigated him. We have investigated a number of public officials. So I can understand why there are people who might not want us involved in that process at all. But What you lose if you take us out is the buffer between a rogue prosecutor and a public servant. We do fulfill that role, but in a very limited way. There's only so much we can do. All we can do is recommend, and then it is up to the prosecutors to decide what they want to do with a perceived violation or one that we have referred because there's probable cause.
But I've also heard frustration from those in this building, not just this sponsor, but others, with the commission, with the Ethics Commission, for really slow down in the number of opinions issued, trainings, things like the administrative part that they kind of depend on to know what are the lines here, and what maybe why haven't there been more definitive rulings, definitive opinions, and things like that? And is that part of this process? Is they want the commission to focus more on those things that really help make members knowledgeable?
Sure. Well, first of all, I've heard that from Representative Simpson. However, if you look at the numbers, the number of informal opinions we've given out have skyrocketed over the last 9 years. The number of formal opinions
I guess that's the thing, formal versus informal.
Sure. The number of formal opinions, however, over the last 9 years is in excess of the number of formal opinions that were given out in the previous 9 years, or at least the previous 7 years. So it's incorrect to say that we are giving less advice. The truth is we're giving a lot more of it. The fact that we give informal opinions, of course, is covered by an administrative rule that the Legislative Council approved in 2015. The Legislative Council approved a rule that said that they had to be confidential. That is also found in other states too, and I'll tell you that it encourages people to ask questions to stay out of trouble. So the commission has been a lot more active. We continue to do trainings. Of course, we have to be invited to do most of those, but we are invited to do that. So the commission has been very active. However, what this bill would do is take away our ability to give any advice on those two sections that are of key importance to people in this building, which is use of office for personal gain and intent to corruptly influence official action. We would no longer be able to give advice on that. So to the extent that that is helpful, and I will tell you it is because we hear it on almost a daily basis, that would end if this bill passes.
Well, it's still early in the process. Hasn't even seen the House floor. Do you think there's any room to compromise between you, the sponsor, the Attorney General? Because this is an important subject matter.
Absolutely it is. We've attempted that. I'm always open ears, and people who have worked with us will know that we will certainly work with them on these issues, and we have attempted that, but have been unsuccessful so far. And so I hope that there is room to do that.
Okay. Well, we'll be watching this going forward. Could be on the floor as soon as this week, so We'll see. Well, Director Tom Albritton, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
Welcome back to Capitol Journal. This week is Navy Week in the capital city, and joining me next to talk about it is Rear Admiral Mike Brown of the United States Navy. Admiral, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Todd.
Well, look, this has really been fun to watch. Just really get started this first day on Monday, but you've got a whole week of activities planned. But let's back up. Why is it Navy Week in the capital city? I know y'all do this a bunch around the country. Why is it important to have a Navy Week?
Well, Montgomery is not a Navy city, right? We don't have ships, we don't have Navy planes, we don't have sailors, so you don't get to see them every day. But the Navy belongs to Montgomery just as much as it belongs to the citizens of, say, Norfolk, Virginia, or San Diego, California. It's your Navy. It's Alabama's Navy. And we're here to bring the Navy closer to the people of Montgomery so that they can see sailor talents and Navy technology, and so we can deliver messages to the fundamental importance that the Navy brings for American national security, economic prosperity, and the American way of life.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand you are a Montgomery native.
I am.
That's unique in your Navy story.
It is. It's particularly gratifying for me as a member of the United States Navy to bring Navy Week to Montgomery because I did not really grow up in a city where I had much knowledge of the Navy. And it's also very gratifying to be here with other sailors from Montgomery and Central Alabama. We actually were able to bring some of them with us. And then we have the namesake ships. We have sailors from the USS Alabama ballistic missile submarine here, the commanding officer and sailors from the submarine. And then we also have sailors from the USS Montgomery.
Wow.
And those sailors, both from Alabama and Montgomery, had great opportunities this morning to meet with Governor Ivey, and then also to meet with Mayor Reed and to have a city proclamation in front of City Hall there with him.
Now, there's a lot of exciting Navy movies. I could go back to my favorite mutiny, the Kane Mutiny, but that that USS Alabama submarine ship, I mean, you talk about exciting. That was pretty cool.
It was. And my personal favorite is, of course, the two Top Gun movies.
Well, yeah, it's hard to beat that. Well, what kind of things can we expect this week in terms of activities? I know you said you met with all these officials. What can we expect from Navy being in town?
Sure. We have more than 70 sailors, right, from the two namesake ships, but also from other Navy commands. And they will be showing off their talents in Navy technology in schools, both in elementary, middle, and senior high schools. We have a STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math exposition today at Auburn University at Montgomery, and another one coinciding with the air show at Maxwell this weekend. We have our Navy band is in town. They'll be entertaining throughout the city, but also doing band clinics with high school bands.
Interesting.
We have Navy meteorologists and oceanographers here talking about the science behind weather forecasting. We've got Navy divers showing off their skills. So we'll be in a lot of schools and community centers, but we're also doing community service projects. We will be working in food banks, the Humane Society, reading time in libraries, and doing neighborhood and park cleanups as well.
Well, I know it's not necessarily billed as a recruiting trip, but it's got to be on the minds of young people as you're in the schools, as they're seeing you more active throughout town, seeing these white uniforms as opposed to the Navy ones we're used to seeing in the Air Force. So it must have an impact in terms of students maybe seeing for the first time a potential career in the Navy. Is that part of it?
That's exactly right. In fact, I said to our team last night when we gathered for our planning meeting that I said, it's not a possibility. It is a certainty that this week you will change a young person's life, because you will impact somebody. They will see how squared away, professional, physically fit you are. They will see how smart you are and the type of technologies that you're able to work with. And people will decide, I want to go into the Navy for those reasons. I'm also delivering a message. I have a more executive type program, and the people that I meet with, they're less the young people of Montgomery and more the influencers, right? The parents, the grandparents, the teachers, the coaches, the pastors and the youth ministers. And I'm reaching out to them as influencers to help them understand and better appreciate the fantastic opportunities that the Navy provides to learn cutting-edge skills leading to high-paying jobs in the modern economy, and to lead and to grow into one's best self by joining a winning team and serving the nation. So that's part of my messaging to the influencers of Montgomery this week.
Well, I know that'll be well received in this building. The legislature will reconvene. They're actually working on a number of military-related bills this week, or expected to in the Senate, talking about making Alabama the most military-friendly state it can be. So it's apropos that y'all are in town. Well, I know you've got some pretty interesting public events coming up. I heard there's a whitewater thing in the works. Tell me about this.
Sure. So on Wednesday night, and this is open to the public, and I hope a lot of people will come out, actually starting late Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. The entire Navy team will be out in force. You will see us at Montgomery Whitewater. We will be there with the Navy band, our ceremonial guard drill team. We will have some of our STEM experts there setting up and showing off what they do. And then we're going to have some fun with the Air Force. We will have a competition, a kayaking competition against the Air Force.
Okay.
And so we're kind of hoping as the sea service on the water, we'll have a little bit of an advantage against the Air Force.
The Navy can't lose to the Air Force, but they're based right next to it.
They probably get to practice more at Montgomery Whitewater than we do. But like I said, our superpower is the water. So.
All right, that's great. So you said late Wednesday afternoon. That's the Montgomery Whitewater Park out here, and it's open to the public.
It's open to the public.
Well, we will be there, and watching to see that interesting competition.
And pulling for the Navy, I'm sure.
Well, yeah. I mean, my dad was Navy ROTC, ended up in the Air Force. I don't know, little split. But I've always said go Navy. And so we'll be listening for Anchors Away. And good luck on your event. But thank you. Thank you for being in town here in the capital city. Of course, it's Montgomery, but as the legislature's in town, as state government gathers, it's important to all of us. So thank you for what you do. And we'll look forward to this week of events.
My pleasure, Todd.
We'll be right back.
Montgomery native Catherine C. Thornton is a physicist and former NASA astronaut. A veteran of 4 space flights, Thornton has logged over 975 hours in space, including more than 21 hours of extravehicular activity. During her time with NASA, she served on the crew of STS-49, the maiden flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour, helped repair the Hubble Space Telescope, and conducted microgravity experiments in Spacelab.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with more coverage of the Alabama legislature here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.